guess I want to hear your opinion on it first, is what you think about AI and what it can possibly do for us. And also I want to hear about how you think the industry is going to adapt to it, especially when it comes to intellectual property rights.
So there's like 17 questions in that.
For sure.
And I'm going to solve the universe right now. So let's do it. Well, I think so. I taught a class on the history of interaction design, which college level class. So it was like big leagues. I'm like, I have to do this right. Did a ton of research. I mean, I spent 3 months researching the history of interaction design, documenting every single moment that could possibly have happened from 1890 all the way to today. And then at the time, this was a year and a half ago, thinking what was the future, and AI wasn't really in the conversation even in that moment, which is just fascinating to think about how fast. Well, AI was in the picture. I should say large language models, LLMs, are the kind of what people are calling AI. It's not, it's a subset, but those weren't really, they were in the picture, but not at the level of sophistication, I guess, as a GPT model would be. But studying the history of that, 1890, a woman named Ada Lovelace documented on paper the first algorithm. So she was exposed to early computing. She was like a daughter of like a wealthy something or other, you know, and was interested in this field, a really emerging field, like real emerging. Yeah. And there's written documentation of her saying that like she believes that it'll be able to do advanced calculations, that it'll be able to predict and interpret human emotion, that it'll be able to interact with humans back then.
That early.
So the AI conversation to me is very different than I think a lot of people, because I say, oh, it's inevitable. Yeah. It's not a surprise. This is something that the history of interaction design from 1890 all the way to today, so like 100 plus years. I'm not going to do math live or ever. We've been working towards that. And I say we, meaning because my perspective of history has shifted to, if I'm in an industry, I work in technology. Yeah. If I'm in an industry here, I need to look back and see everyone that's affected that industry, because they're working alongside me ultimately. Their contributions are working alongside me. The affect of their life is working alongside of me. And, you know, back then she had made that prediction. I'm sure other people were also making that prediction, and they were starting to work with ones and zeros, which were just like electricity going on and off, and eventually getting to computing that we have today. So I think AI is inevitable. We've also talked about, we haven't here, but the idea of the information age, people are aware of. We've been existing in the information age. A question no one asks, I have never heard someone ask this, is like, what is the like pinnacle of the information age? We've thought that we've been there. It's like, oh, it's social media.
It always feels like it's
and it's there. Like, I really hope that MySpace, it wasn't the pinnacle of the information age, right? I certainly hope that like whatever Instagram's doing in any given day isn't the pinnacle of the information age. I don't think that's what we were working for. But if you break that word apart, you have age, which is just a period of time spanning, which is a gradation between agricultural, industrial, and whatever comes next, which is another thing I'm very interested in. But we've been existing in it. Our whole lives have existed in it. And the Industrial Revolution, we've seen it. We haven't necessarily participated in it as young people. Yeah. Some have, but most haven't. But there's been a lot of emphasis on technology in this era. But what's the technology for, and what is the pinnacle of the information age isn't asked often among people. It probably is in certain circles in technology. Yeah. So when you start to see AI and you start thinking about, well, where could it be? Well, like, what could the pinnacle be? Yeah. Well, you're breaking information now and age apart. So let's talk about information. Like information, there's information everywhere. Like there's information about everything everywhere. Pockets. Yeah, the whole earth is just a circle filled with bits of data that together collected can form information and ideas. There's histories essentially that have existed within this sphere, you know? And so what AI is kind of doing in a very interesting, fascinating sense is sort of trying to absorb all of the data points to then make information out of it.
Yeah.
whether that's historical data, whether that's existing data. It can't pull future data unless it's sort of in a black hole somehow and it's able to do that. I don't know. It's crazy stuff. I'm sure it's happening, but another universe maybe. But yeah, so like current data, past data. And so for me, it was like, well, I have historic data. I have historic data all the way back to, drawings when I was a kid. Like, wouldn't it be interesting to kind of feed an AI that was sort of just my own, and there was nothing else being added into it, and just start to see like what it could say back, and maybe surface insights that I've overlooked because I was tired or intoxicated or angry, or name any emotion, like I had ignored it, but it was right there in front of me. And so that was just kind of an interesting experiment. And I took a class to learn more about it. And they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to learn about me. like that's a fascinating thing. Like, you can Google everything else, but like to learn about the self, it's such a hard, it's a lifelong project. And so can we use technology to assist in that? And then can I open that up to my therapist? Can he have access into it? And, I mean, there's just a fascinating array of things that could go wrong and things that could go right.